Joining us now is Vina Nadjibulla, Vice President of Research and Strategy at the Asia Pacific Foundation. Thanks for being with us today, Vina.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation.
What is your high-level takeaway of today's meeting between these two leaders?
So no major breakthroughs, but really a change in tone as well as direction, and a signal that both governments want to work on the issues, including on trade and tariffs. But of course, for Canada, we still need to proceed with caution. All of the challenges that we have with China on national security, on foreign interference, on economic security, they still remain. But of course, we've got to engage in dialogue, but do so in a cautious way, coordinated with our allies, and sequence along the discussions that we're having with the U.S.
How do you actually do that? Foreign interference was at the top of every single headline for so many months during the Trudeau government. And today, seemingly, it's something that this Liberal government is willing to overlook in the interest of trade, given the war on trade with the United States that's going on.
That's a good question, and I think we can't overlook that. The reality is the relationship with China is complex. We can't just call them a strategic partner and forget about everything else. Yes, we can be partners on some issues, but we still have to deal with the strategic challenges emanating from China, like on foreign interference, like their threats to our allies in the region, Ukraine, or South China Sea, or Taiwan. So it's a complex relationship that can't just be defined as a strategic partnership. We need to continue to engage with them when we need to, like on mutually beneficial issues around trade and commerce, but we also have to remain vigilant and make sure that we continue to protect the things that matter to us, whether it's on national security or even economic security discussions, and the kinds of industries that we want to have in this country, both today and also into the future.
The Prime Minister spoke to reporters following that meeting, and he said that his instructions to his officials was to work, quote, at pace, which makes it sound like something might be happening imminently or very soon. If something does happen, what do you think that might be? The lifting of the EV tariffs, then potentially the removal of the counter tariffs from China?
So it does sound like there is an interest to move forward on what's called the irritants. So that is, of course, the trade issues. But we have to look at the relationship more holistically when it comes to economic relations with China. So it can't just be remove EVs to be tariffs on EVs to be able to get some relief on canola. Whatever decision we make on EVs has to be made in Canada in consultation, obviously, with our provinces, but also as part of the negotiations with the U.S., because we have to decide what kind of auto sector Canada will have moving forward, and then be able to negotiate with China. We should not be removing the tariffs just because there is pressure from China. That would set a bad precedent. And I think more generally, again, we have to get much more clarity of what kind of relationship Canada wants to have with China. What are the areas on which we would engage, but what are still the red lines, right? Like what red lines still remain, and what kind of guardrails we will put in place to be able to protect that.
And to put this all into context, it was the United States, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that put in place the 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs to start with, and then Canada followed suit. So if Canada breaks ranks with the U.S., there could be consequences to move in a different direction. That said, the U.S. has made it very clear that their auto sector comes first. So is it time for Canada to go in its own direction?
It's definitely time for Canada to put our own national interests first. So whatever we do has to be very much in the interests of Canadians, Canadian workers, Canadian businesses, and also has to take into account our overall industrial strategy, our plans for the industry both today but also moving forward. So it can't be done just because of pressure from China or pressure from the U.S. I mean, this is complicated. It's not going to be easy. It's a difficult diplomatic tightrope to walk for Prime Minister Carney, but he has started that with these discussions with Xi Jinping, and let's see where this goes. But I don't think we'll see any quick solutions, certainly not just on one issue. It has to be part of broader discussions.
And I should know, Vina, we're not just doing this out of an allegiance to the United States and solidarity with them. Of course, Ontario's Premier Ford really wants these EV tariffs to stay. So we will see what happens on that position. Vina, always appreciate your insights on these matters. Vina Nadjibulla is the Vice President of Research and Strategy with the Asia Pacific Foundation.